one can realize, oh, I feel that I'm on a mission to get her to ride that bike, and so I'm just gonna plow ahead. You have your part that's on a mission and her fearful, obstinate part, and the parts are duking it out. Like you said, it's a parts war or whatever. It's a parts conflict. And often it doesn't end well. It ends with someone in tears or someone saying something they regret. And that's part of parenting. That does happen. I'm not suggesting that this is a foolproof way to never have that happen. But when you're more aware of your own parts and you can pause, you can even notice in your body, like, wow, I'm really tense right now. Like, then you can start to have a little conversation with yourself first, right?
Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. My name is LeeDavy. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, and I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same. Like right now, we are going to be speaking to Lisa Spiegel today. Lisa wrote this book. It is Internal Family System Therapy with Children, and it continues our theme of all things conscious parenting. But before I read the bio of Lisa, why is IFS important to me? IFS is a framework which just really makes sense to me. Lisa calls it a philosophy, and I agree on that. And it really runs at the heart of the Strive method and everything that we do at Strive, right? Like understanding that we're not of mono mind, that within each and every one of us, there is a self, a perfectly imperfect, amazing, beautiful essence where we are on top form or above the line. And then we have a collection of parts which are activated when we're below the line, when we're in ego, when we are in victim consciousness. Some of those parts, for example, want you to drink alcohol. Some of those parts want you to smoke cigarettes. Some of those parts are inner critics. Some of those parts seek approval from outside of yourself, and on and on and on. And whenever I work with my clients in the Strive community and group coaching calls as well, IFS, or internal family systems, is really important. And if you want to learn more about internal family systems, check out the interview that we did with Dr. Richard Schwartz, who birthed this whole idea and philosophy. So IFS, really important. Not only is it important to learn and understand how you can use this in your children, the most important thing is you as a parent understanding and raising your self-awareness around when you are part activated, so you can be very careful and tread very lightly when you're communicating with your children. So, for example, after I've done this intro, I'm going to go put my daughter to bed. It's very unusual for me not to have a battle when I take her to bed, because she much prefers her mum to take her to bed. So I already know that there is a potential trigger there coming up, right? That I could potentially be triggered by this 7-year-old, and my autonomic nervous system will kick in. I'll be going into sympathetic nervous system. I'll start going into fight or flight mode, and I'll be part activated, and I'll start talking to her in an unkind way. I might start being short with her, not paying attention and being present for her. So I kind of know that's going to happen because that's past history. So it's my responsibility as an adult to do what I need to do to regulate my nervous system. So when I'm taking her to bed, I'm calm. I'm in parasympathetic nervous system state. I'm calm. I'm chilled. I'm in my self energy, right? Do a little bit of breath work, talk to myself, calm my parts down, tell them how much I love them, and remind myself how much I love my daughter, and then take her to bed from a real state of self, presence, and awareness. And if you do that more often, then I'm going to get less of a battle, right? And I can tell you, my battles on taking her to bed have diminished and have slowed down so much over the years because of the work that I've done with IFS, all right? So I really hope you enjoy this episode. And if you want to learn more about my ideas around parenting, my free guide is over at thestrivemethod.com, www.thestrivemethod.com. It's about nurturing resilience and nurturing your children through the digital age, but it's all about working on yourself. So go check out that ebook. And if you want to join Strive and learn to live a self-led life and to raise your consciousness and learn more about IFS, again, go to the website, strivemethod.com, and join the waiting list. Or you can WhatsApp me directly, +44 753 789 6829. All right, we'll get you on board and give you some help. All right, on to my guest, Lisa. Lisa Spiegel has been a psychotherapist for 40 years. She is the co-founder of Soho Parenting, the first parenting psychotherapy center in New York City. Lisa has her BA from Vassar College and her master's in developmental psychology from Teachers College, Columbia University. Lisa is trained in EMDR, life force yoga therapist, and she's also a certified IFS therapist. She has provided parent guidance and psychotherapy to children, adolescents, and adults in her practice, as well as at many New York City preschools. She teaches IFS to therapists around the world, and she is the author of 2 books, A Mother's Circle and Internal Family Systems Therapy with Children, this is where I found her. And she lives in New York City with her husband and has 2 adult daughters and 4 grandchildren. So she's very busy. So without further ado, I'll shut the hell up and leave you in the capable hands of Lisa Spiegel. Ready to roll. Lisa, how are you doing? It's really always interesting when you read a book and then you can't see because it's blurred out. You read a book and then get the opportunity to speak to the author. I'm very privileged and honored. Why children, Lisa?
Oh, why children? Well, that's a story that started many, many, many years ago. I've probably with the birth of my little sister when I was 8. I've always just been drawn to, fascinated by, delighted by children. And so all throughout, whether it was a camp counselor or, all through my kind of adolescence and first jobs and college and graduate school, and then my subsequent career, a lot of my work has been centered around children and their families. So I find human development unendingly fascinating.
I have a 22-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it's safe to say when my 22-year-old was young, I was a little bit unconscious, we'll say. I wasn't really with it as a parent. And it's great to see my 7-year-old going through all the inner child stuff that I am currently unraveling in my 40s. And I can see how it all happens and builds up as she's going through it in real life,
Exactly. The wisdom we gain just from the lived experience,
Yeah.
I have, my children are 37 and 33, and I have 4 grandchildren, 5 and then 3 18-month-olds, twins and another one. So it's a whole new round of being able to watch them grow and develop. And it's really incredible.
What I'd like to do today is I've interviewed Dr. Richard Schwartz before, so I can always reference to Dr. Richard Schwartz to get in if somebody listening to this wants to get into the weeds of IFS. I'd like obviously you to give them a nutshell explanation of it because it will help them with this show. But then what I would really like is to approach it as a parent really, and to be like, how can parents use some of this wonderful stuff with their children? And because at some point they reach a skill and an experience gap, which then has to be handed over to the experts like yourself. But there's so much parents could do with their children. So I'd love to pick your brains on that. But first, just in a nutshell for people at home who might not know, what is internal family systems?
So as you mentioned, Richard Schwartz developed a model, kind of a model of the mind, I would say, a model of, and almost I think of it as a philosophy really of just how human beings ticked. And that model posits that every one of us, regardless of our experience in life, are born with and always have a wise, compassionate, undamaged, he calls it self with a capital S. And that self energy, that ability to connect, to be clear, to have courage and persistence, is in all of us, no matter what's happened to us, which is a very big departure from a lot of therapeutic thought and psychoanalytic thought previous to this. And what happens then is we also we're born with this self, and we're also born with a potential to have different parts of ourselves, right? So we can all, you think about this, the sort of angel devil idea that you have on, that we all can relate to on our shoulders, like, do it. No, you shouldn't do it. Right in just that little experience, we can understand that we have multiple perspectives and voices and agendas and skills that are inside all of us, and that is not pathological. That doesn't mean we have multiple personality disorder. It's not pathological. It's human nature, really. And so that we have these different sort of ways of looking at things and different reactions to things. We have the potential for those things to grow and develop as we go through our childhoods and adolescence and adulthoods. Some of those parts of us kind of hum along and work in concert, and things go well for periods of time. But all of us experience different kinds of pain in life. That's also part of the human experience. And it is our nature to adapt to those experiences and to kind of mount little forces inside to help us survive those different situations, whether they're experiences of abandonment or harsh treatment or something that happens like a hurricane, or it can be an actual event. It can be an intrafamilial experience, but it can also be a cultural legacy. That you're growing up in a culture that denigrates certain aspects that you're born with. And so we develop responses and defenses to those things to get us through. But what we typically find at some point in life, and I do believe this is everyone, is that some of those parts of us that counter feelings of abandonment by, let's say, being like extremely clingy and making sure we're near someone all the time, or cutting off from feelings because you don't want to feel the pain of that abandonment. Those things grow. They kind of get over. I think of like a guy in the gym who's really pumping, just overdeveloped, like a too muscly part that ends up kind of leading a lot, and often kind of doesn't really get us what we want, sort of leads us on a path really away from what we want. For most of us, just want connection and love and a feeling of pride in our own work and endeavors. And what Dick Schwartz has really shown us is that rather than trying to squash or eject that overdeveloped part, it's the opposite. We build a connection with that part, that we learn to appreciate that part for the work it's done for us. And we, as he says, love it up. We really start to show the part inside, sending it loving energy, speaking to it and saying, I'm so appreciative for what you've done for me, but actually kind of, I'm here now, so you don't have to work so hard. So in some ways, it's really a reorganization of the inner work that can happen with this idea of internal family systems. And there is a protocol that therapists learn and work with their clients, whether they're adults or children. But when it comes to parents, it's really more the philosophy and the understanding that I think that for me has helped me so much in my parenting and grandparenting, which is the idea that when something shows up as problematic in one of our children or ourselves, it's not, it's an opportunity to understand the inner world of that person, that it's here as a communication, that something's a little off. And that what's needed is sort of more connection and attunement rather than anger ridicule, the things that come more naturally, I think, to us when one of our kids is misbehaving, or they won't separate at school, or they're, peeing on the floor, or they can't get to bed at night. The things that generally aggravate us as parents and usually call for an initial response of like, cut it out. What IFS teaches us is to pause and be curious and to think, what is this behavior or cluster of behaviors? What is that part trying to do for my child? And how can I learn more about my child through this, what we might call symptom, which is not knee jerk. It's just not knee jerk. We're very reactive beings, and we often tend to get triggered by things like that and just want to stamp it out. So I have found that the model of IFS, separate from using the protocol as a therapist, but just the model as this idea that all of our parts have a positive intention for us. They're actually trying to help us in some way. If we go back to that clingy kid who stays very close, that clinginess that we might find distasteful is showing us something about, in that child, a sense that they have felt left at some point. And we need to address that. We can repair things. And then the child kind of rebalances internally, and then you sort of move on until the next difficult thing comes up. So is that helpful as a beginning?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example of something that just happened to me, everyday life thing, and then you can use the example to explain to the people at home. Sure. Obviously it's your perception of parts, right? So earlier on, my wife and myself said to my daughter, she's 7, Zia, come on, we're going to go out on the bike. I don't want to go out on the bike, right? So that's the first thing. I don't want to go out on the bike. So we talked to her and eventually coaxed her without threatening her or bribing her, but we eventually managed to get her out. But then she doesn't want to go on the bike on her own. She wants me to hold, and she doesn't want me to let go. Then when she sees large gatherings of adults, she doesn't want to go on there at all. Mm-hmm. Then we start going, and she sees a kid her age coming the other way, and she says, let go, let go, let go, all of a sudden. And she was in and out, in and out. So using that as an example, what do you think is going on there in terms of parts and self to give a real life example to people at home?
Yeah, that's so Zia is her name? Yeah. So, and I think that this is a great example because I think any parent can relate.
Everyone, right?
They never want to leave what they're doing, and then they don't want to leave what you eventually get them to do, which is, childhood. But if I, and again, I don't know Zia at all, but what I would say for most 7-year-olds is there are parts. Well, number one, it's very common for kids to have parts that they kind of are present doing what they're doing, and they don't want to change what they're doing, right? So the initial protest, I don't want to go out on the bike, could be really just simply the kind of like a body in motion tends to stay in motion, a body at rest tends to stay at rest, right? It's just, again, human nature. But once you manage to get her out there, she's got parts of her that are afraid to fall, to be watched, to be somehow not, really good at what she's doing. And those parts are saying, and scared parts, right? And so she's letting you know, which is so great, right? Like what we want most is for our kids to let us know what their inner experience is. And so she's not going to say to you, oh, Dad, I have a part of me that's scared to ride the bike, but you can infer, oh, she's on the bike, she's present, but there's really a part of her that's afraid to fall, afraid to not be able to do it. And somehow the adult seeing the other big people really reinforced that fear, right? So the parts of her that are cautious or fearful of falling are most active at that moment. Then she sees the kids riding, and a whole other part of her, inspired, competitive, courageous, clicks in once she sees that other image of that kid riding the bike. And so for parents, it's like you sort of feel like, oh, I'm in a pinball machine. What is going on here? But when you slow it down, the fearful parts backed up. They weren't leading, and the courage and the inspiration and maybe a little dose of competition took over. And there she's telling you to let go. And so you as a parent can show up as comforting when the fearful part is there, but you can also respond when the other thing takes over and just and sort of like go for it, and then it'd be interesting to hear how she reacted when it was all over.
Well, I have another point that just came up for me actually, and then I'll explain what happened afterwards, because that's something I want to broach as well. What I wanted to say was that the IFS model, why I think it's really important for parents, is here's a child who is very quickly alternating between parts and self. Maybe you don't really know because it's happening so quickly. And if you yourself don't have the IFS model, right? And you're there, especially a father, like a man, you're there to take your kid out on their bike, and they're obstinate. They won't go on it. They want to get off. And then all of a sudden the parents' parts get activated. Exactly. And the parents get into parts, and now there's this parts war going on because the parent doesn't even understand what's going on for them, and they've got this status hierarchy of I'm the adult, I'm the grown up, I'm bigger than you, you will do what I say, and you just end up with anarchy, which happened actually when I tried to teach my first son how to ride a bike. Whereas today with the IFS, I can recognize that she's parts activated, and then I can speak almost like to the part. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I do think it again, when one is aware of their own system, that they have parts that get triggered. For instance, like you said, like I'm on a mission. I want this kid to learn how to ride a bike. Like that's my mark of success, right? So you can be aware I've got an energy inside of me that is kind of heightened. And anytime a parent feels a heightened energy about something, you can just assume a part is leading your system at that moment, right? And we're mostly parts led all the time. I mean, I don't in any way want to give the impression that, if you practice and read and know enough about Alpha IFS, you just walk around in this kind of Zen state. That doesn't happen. But when one can realize, oh, I feel that I'm on a mission to get her to ride that bike, and so I'm just gonna plow ahead. You have your part that's on a mission, and her fearful, obstinate part, and the parts are duking it out. Like you said, it's a parts war or whatever. It's a parts, conflict, and often it doesn't end well. It ends with someone in tears or someone saying something they regret. And that's part of parenting. That does happen. I'm not suggesting that this is a foolproof way to never have that happen. But when you're more aware of your own parts and you can pause, you can even notice in your body, like, wow, I'm really tense right now. Like, then you can start to have a little conversation with yourself first, right? Like, wow, I really want her to learn how to ride this bike today. And let's see if I can soften back into having this be just another good experience on the bike that will eventually lead to riding a bike on her own, right? Can I just talk myself off the ledge? Because at that point, when you can recognize your own activation, you're just much more open and attuned to what's actually going on in your child's system. So then you can actually pendulate from encouragement or backing off, or, because in all adults and children, we do have so many opposing, we have lots of parts that come out, right? So for parents, it's recognizing their own human, very, very human proclivity to reactiveness, right?
And parts and reactivity It's kind of like beef and mustard or fish and chips, right?
Exactly. It's they just go together. And so often what's terrific about the fact that does go together is you can get a signal from your body well before you have actually made a coherent thought in your mind. We can tune into our activation. We can feel it in our shoulders or in our faces get scrunched up or our hands get grippy. The body is giving you the message first, right? Because it's a gut sensation that's happening. And so the more we understand that we can use our body as kind of like an early warning system, I think the better we get as parents to even be giving ourselves a little chilling out moment, whether it's actually leaving the room or going into the bathroom or going out for a run or doing something, because we are going to be activated by our kids' parts. It's just part of the package, right?
Well, when we went out on the bike, it's a struggle. Like I said, it was a struggle to get out, and then my wife looked at me and she went like this, like smile, like. So she's already intuitively noting that I'm parts activated, and her nod to me to smile made me realize that I was parts activated. And then a little later on, the gear went on Zia's bike, and it's only a small kid's bike, but I jumped on the bike to ride it to change the gear. And as I was riding it to change the gear, Liza said, "You're squashing the tires." And then Zia said, "Dad, you're squashing the tires." And straight away I went, I have to ride it to change the gears. And I knew I was part activated straight away. I stopped and I said, "Guys, I'm sorry I raised my voice." You know what I mean? But I think as a parent, that self-awareness is huge. It's like the biggest, if I were to say what has been the biggest leap in my development as a parent, because I used to be alcohol reliant and now I don't drink. What is the biggest thing? It's that rise in self-awareness and really being able to take responsibility for your parts and the way that they respond to other people, even self or parts, right? I don't know if you have anything to say on that.
I mean, I just agree with you because I think, well, first of all, to be in a sober state of mind really helps in terms of self-awareness and that ability to put the brakes on a little bit. And I use the word repair before because it's in the repair in our intimate relationships. It's not that relationships are supposed to go smoothly, and if relationships are difficult, we're doing something wrong. Relationships are always moving through cycles of harmony and disharmony and repair. But that presence, when you could finally get like, wow, okay, I need to pause here, right? As the tires are smushed and the gears are going and you're getting this input from your wife and your daughter, like, "Dad, you're
breaking the bike
a little bit. You're breaking the bike." For you to be able, there are so many times where we can't let that in, right? And we just have to play the whole thing out. But the ability to stop and notice yourself and to like I'm just doing, putting like holding yourself in some manner, like just whoa. And then to be able to look toward your loved ones and be able to say, "I'm really sorry I raised my voice." That's the repair. That's the accountability. And that's what we need. It's not, "Oh, you should never have jumped on the bike." And it's the repair, right? Because that also shows your daughter, we make mistakes, we get upset, but we can stop and we can regroup and we can move in a different direction. And then we can connect and settle down and make a different decision about what we're going to do with the bike right now. And so I do think that presence, that ability to press pause, that I think as you start to really dive into learning about your own reactivity, and sort of understand that those are just parts that are trying to help. It's not that you're a terrible person or a bad father or anything like that. It's just you were on a mission to get to have that bike work and have your daughter ride her bike. And that took over. And it didn't really need to take over as much as it did.
So just breaking in here and just having a little pause in this conversation between myself and Lisa to let you know that if you want to learn more about internal family systems, if you want to incorporate it into your life, if you want to understand your parts and understand self, then come and join Strive and learn to do this work through the Strive Method Quest. Join Strive, have group coaching calls with myself on a weekly basis, go through the Strive Method Quest where you learn all about internal family systems and learn to live a self-led life. Go to www.thestrivemethod.com to join Strive, and you'll also find a free ebook on how to nurture children in a digital age. All right, right back to Lisa Spiegel. The whole understanding of IFS and no bad parts, one thing that it has really helped me, and I interviewed somebody yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing actually in a different context. But what it's helped me do is help me have a lot of self-compassion. So Zia's 7, and I said to my guest yesterday, nobody has hurt my daughter more than I have. Like my wife, she is an amazing, incredibly nurturing, compassionate, empathetic human being, and it's 10x, 100x when she's with my daughter. The way that she's able to get to her level and be calm is amazing. Like she's an inspiration to me. But I'm not built like that, right? So if anyone has hurt my daughter more than anybody, it's me. And I've happened to be the person taking care of her when she's been through her most traumatic moments. But because I have so much self-compassion, and I realize that in those moments where I've let her down, let's say, or I haven't been at my most stellar best, that it's a part of my psyche that's trying to keep me safe. And most of the time it's happening like biology, right? Because my autonomic nervous system is kicked in. I'm able to just take a breather, settle down, recognize when my daughter's settled as well, and then go back and then just be like, hey, earlier on when I said X, I imagine that made you feel Y. I want us to be close and I just pushed you apart. I'm really very sorry. Like, and then I've noticed as my daughter's got older, is she will also repair. She will take responsibility for the way that she responds, and she's able to do that without demanding that I do it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a maturity there that I think is really going to serve her well.
Yeah, no, it's it's funny when you said I've hurt my daughter more than anyone. I noticed immediately a kind of like a sinking, searing little pain, which is that feeling with my oldest daughter of oh yeah, well that's true for me too. Like I don't really know, I mean she's had a long life, but that feeling that is so painful for parents to know that we actually are the ones, despite our devotion and our intentions and our loving connection to our children, that we are the ones that hurt them often the most, particularly when they're young, and it is painful. And the idea of, rather than going on self-attack, right? Which again is a part that is trying to make you stop doing that, right? So one response to that idea of, oh, I'm the person who's hurt my child the most, is to hear inside, and I'm sure most people can relate to this, like, you're a horrible mother, or you're an idiot, or how could you have done that, or what's wrong with you? We say things to ourselves that are so cruel, right? And really, when you learn about that critic, Dick calls them inner critics. When we learn about that critic and we dialogue with that critic, we learn, well, I'm just trying to help you cut it out. I'm just trying to help you stop doing those things you're so upset about. And so I'm harsh with you, right? And so again, what you realize is even that, the opposite of self-compassion, even that part that can be so critical, is actually just trying to help you do better. Even that, bringing compassion and gratitude to the critic, helps the critic settle down so that maybe the next time you're not as harsh with yourself when you mess up as a parent, and you can be just like, I'm trying my best. I definitely messed that up. You're repairing with your child if you can, but internally, you're also creating more of that space where you're just acknowledging your own humanity and your foibles, and that even the harsh language we use with ourselves, that also has a positive intention for us.
Can we touch upon something, actually? It's drifting a little bit away from parenting, but it's something that now I've got you, I'd love to ask you, because it's been interesting to me. Yesterday, I was talking to my wife, and I was saying to her that with all the work that I've been doing especially in my 40s, I mean, I stopped drinking when I was 35. So I think my journey in kind of like growth and consciousness started at 35. But I would say really in the last 5, 6 years, I've really taken feedback from my wife and been like, Lee, you've got to really sort yourself out. And I said to her, I look back on my life, and I had a tough life, but there's no way that my life was as tough as so many people in the world. Yet I have so many parts that get activated so frequently. And then I said to her, but I do have a memory of being abused when I was younger, sexually, right? Like I have a memory of somebody playing with me when I was younger. And in that memory, I didn't feel unsafe. I kind of liked it, right? Like in the memory. And my wife said to me, I'm curious why you've never sought to figure that out, like to go work on it or something. And I said to her, the reason I haven't gone to work on it is I'm okay with it, right? Like I think if anything, I'm thinking to myself, did it really happen, or have I just made it up in my memory? But I'm also aware that if it did happen, it's likely not a boy, it's likely a man, it's likely somebody I know, it's likely a family member, right? Like an uncle or a father or something. And honestly, if I found out who it was, I would literally just be full of like forgiveness immediately, because I have this philosophy of no bad parts. However, if I was to post that on Twitter or something, or write about it on Facebook, I'd get a lot of hate. Yeah. Because to say there's no bad parts, people are feeling like you're siding with people who do very bad things. Yet I think, unless they're psychopaths, where most humans do very bad things, but they do very bad things for a reason. And most of the time it's because that part is trying to keep them safe in some way. And in a way it prevents, I mean, I'm doing it now, but it prevents people from speaking more openly about this, right? It's like the compassionate piece.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about it.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you're bringing up so many very deep and complex ideas encapsulated in that example. And I guess what I would say is, you don't want to, if you did decide, not necessarily to find out who did it, but to be with the young parts who liked it, who maybe were a little confused, who, that it may be a more complex experience inside. Particularly if in terms of familial or close participation of like a family friend or whatever, the child can feel very connected, and most of us are hurt the most by people we love. This is the corollary to what we were just talking about as parents. And sometimes those things that people we love do to us really are outside the boundaries, and come into the realm of abusive. And I guess what I would say is not to skip over, not that the goal ultimately might not be compassionate acceptance of the experience and of the parts of the person, but you want to make sure you don't skip over other young parts that may have had other reactions to the experience. And that's why I think the experience, particularly of child sexual abuse, is so complex that it's when you're ready and when your parts are ready, it's really worth not so much finding out about the outside, but finding out about the inside.
Can
You
I just
know,
say something on that? Because
yeah.
I think it's really important actually. With all my knowledge of IFS, I've never considered talking to or doing work with my parts that were affected by that incident. It's never crossed my mind. So I wonder if a protector part actually is being protecting a conversation with that exile, and it's blended with self almost. So I don't even recognize that
I,
that's what it's doing.
I mean, that's so brave of you to say this right now, because I think, you can kind of, obviously you're a curious person who's interested, like,
Mm.
that you're interested in human behavior and
Yeah.
connection and understanding and growth. So it's sort of a funny little, like just noticing the lack of curiosity about that, because it doesn't really fit with, you know, most of you presently, can be kind of, as Dick would call it, a trailhead, or I usually call it a portal. Like it's a portal into something interesting. Like the lack of curiosity of working with the parts is the trailhead, right? It doesn't even actually have to be the experience itself, because what you want to do is you want to appreciate the protectors that have kept you from maybe the fear that if you were to really dive into it, it would be more difficult for you than you want it to be. Or there might be something that comes up that's more problematic in terms of your relationships with other people and your family. So the idea that you could say to me right now, I think it's possible that I'm blended with a protector who doesn't really want me to go there. That's where I would start, not even with the experience itself, right? Because the idea isn't to plow into your inner world and blast it apart. It really isn't. It's about patience, and it's about pacing, and it's about trusting the wisdom of protective parts. Because I as a therapist, and I see adults and children, I really do feel like when the things reveal themselves sometimes, when the parts recognize that the whole system is ready for it, right? You may not have even brought up this whole topic of your experience. You wouldn't have brought it up on this podcast if there wasn't some intuitive sense inside that you're ready to look at it. You just wouldn't have brought it up because you opened yourself up for a very deep conversation about this, right? And so that's where you can trust, I believe, that your protectors start to get a sense of like, when is there more readiness? When is there more of this self energy in the system that's going to be able to help me through something that might be complicated?
Hmm. I
Um,
think what I just realized when I said that there could be a protector part preventing access to the exile by saying, "Oh, it's not a problem." That's also kind of linked to this thing that I see regularly in people, where they'll say, I'll give you a good example. I'm half Chinese, but I grew up in a white neighborhood. Everyone was white, including my parents and my sisters. So around 8 or 9, I know it was that age because of the question, and I didn't know about sex, right? So I asked my mom, "Do we have any relatives who are Chinese?" So I didn't know anything about sex, obviously. So I was about 8 or 9, and she told me that my real father, my biological father, was Chinese. And I remember saying, "Yeah, but my dad's still my dad, right?" And she said, "If you want him to be." And from that moment, I've had zero interest in going to find my real father. And everybody is astounded that I never even talk about it. I never considered it. And so, again, that could be the same part. But what has come up for me now is it's easy for me to say, as a 49-year-old man, or the perception of a 49-year-old man, I'm not bothered by that. But that doesn't mean that the 8-year-old boy within the inner framework of my personality is not got issues with that. And I see this a lot in people. They're like, "Yeah, I've got no problem about the fact I was eaten alive by a dog when I was younger." No, but your younger part may have.
Well, and that's exactly what I was saying when I was saying, like, there may have been a part of you, the young boy who had the experience, that was the body feels pleasure. That we're not in charge of that, right? We're not in charge of how our body reacts to touch, right? So often in sexual abuse, there is physical arousal, and that's what people feel so ashamed of. But that's just a fact, because the body responds how the body responds. And so there could be that, but there could have been another young part that had other feelings about it. And maybe, and that's what you would want to make sure that at some point, if you decide to sort of dive into this, that you end up hearing from the 8-year-old who sort of is like, so who is my biological father, right? And so I think you're right. It's like we make peace inside, mostly, I would say, with our parts. Our parts make peace with something. Our parts decide, I'm okay with that. I'm over that. But as we grow and change, and I think this is going to be until the day we die, sometimes something will get brought up or touched on or remembered, and you have a whole fresh relationship to that experience. And maybe parts of you really, doesn't mean those parts weren't okay with it, but there may have also been other parts. And that's what I love about IFS. It's so rich. It's like I started my IFS therapy, I think in 2012 or something. I had my first IFS it was a week-long retreat where Dick was speaking, and that's when I started. And I still learn such interesting things about myself. And like the phase I'm in right now is about my elderly parents. Is my parents are still alive. My dad's 94, my mom's 85. So much has happened in the last few years with their care and choices and decisions. And that I've never been through that phase before. So I'm 63. I've never had my elderly parents to really think about their mortality and how to care for their affairs. That new experience is helping me meet younger parts of myself that I really hadn't met before, because I haven't had this experience to bring it up yet. So it's like, like I was saying about children, they're unendingly fascinating. And maybe what I'm saying is I find myself unendingly fascinating. But I think really what I'm saying is us human beings are so complex, and there's more to learn and grow. There's always more that we can sort of learn and soothe and comfort, because life is always giving us new experiences to deal with, and that are currently challenging, but they lead back in particular ways to our younger parts.
I think that fascination is really important. Like I want to be careful here, because I don't want to. There are people in the world who have had the most awful traumatic things happen to them, and I don't want to. Well, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but I don't want to dismiss their problems. But I've always looked at my back traveling, if you like, and my deep inner work as something that's been fascinating. Even the most shame revealing stuff that I've done, like the things that I had moments when I couldn't even speak words because I was so ashamed. And then when I finally got it out, rather than feeling more shame, there was just such a release and a lightness and a curiosity to find out more. And that's the way that I've always approached my self-development. And I encourage my children the same thing. Is like, you're not alone. We're in this together. You know what I mean? We can do this type of thing. But I like what you said. It's like that curiosity and that aliveness that go into this work is really important. Otherwise the parts can win, right? Like the parts will just be like, no, we are not going there. It's too scary. It's awful. I can't handle it. We ain't going to go there. And then a parent will really struggle. And that's where you come in, I guess, is when the parent says, Lisa, I can't go any further here.
Yeah. And I think that idea of when we hit a real wall emotionally in ourselves or with our children, or a behavior becomes kind of preoccupying or it's really interfering, it is so great to be able to reach out and enlist that other set of eyes and ears and heart, because often you really can turn something around, particularly with kids. Kids can really shift out of a stuck place pretty quickly, and so rather than keep digging the groove, the neural groove of whatever this difficult thing is, just getting a little bit of fresh air and other, and for children, it's through play. It's really usually through play that they work through things, that we work through by speaking or by using our bodies or whatever. So it is so helpful as a parent. I could never, and to this day, I would never parent on my own. I mean, I have an advisory board basically, and whether they're paid or volunteers, who go through the journey with me, because whatever stage you're in, whether they're 7 or 22 or 37 or grandparenting, it's new and it's challenging and it's so important, right? It's what really ends up mattering so much to all of us, is like, how did we do in those intimate relationships? And so, again, not everyone has access to therapy, but hopefully we have trusted people we know that we can bounce things off of, and we can run it by them, and we can ask for input. It's just not something to be done alone. And unfortunately, our culture isn't set up so much, to be parenting in community, which I think is so much easier than parenting on our own.
I really feel like, I said earlier on that my wife is an inspiration to me in this area. I really believe that, as hard as it is, if you can do your own inner work and raise your self-awareness around parts and self, and to try and be in self in those moments when you're connected with your child or when they really need you, that you have everything within you to be able to do the greatest job you can. So when I see my wife just showing up, I look at her and I'm like, she's just being a mom. Nobody's had to teach her anything. This is her innate wisdom that she's tapping into, herself with a capital S. And she's really shining that now with her daughter and showing her daughter that. And yet, and then for me, it's more difficult. And I wrote a post yesterday, like racetracks, like with parents, like maybe Liza's racetrack is just all downhill and all cool, just because maybe when she was younger, life in the household was a little bit easier. And then my path of parenting, there's obstacles in the way and there's hurdles and there's pitfalls because my house was a little bit more tumultuous, a little bit more difficult. And that's okay. And for Liza to recognize that in me to recognize that in her, and as parents to recognize that each other has parts, really kind of reduces a lot of conflict, right? Like, because if you don't have that knowledge and understanding, you just think you're married to a jerk. But
it brings a lot more compassion into the relationship. Yes. But I guess as I'm hearing you, I'm wanting to say to you that that's how it is now. And there may be a time in your parenting of Zia that is harder for Liza, that you just haven't been there yet. And that you may end up being the one in that phase of development. Maybe it's when Zia is 14 or something, that your wife will struggle, and then you can come in and be that support for her. You just don't know that yet. And it's important just to know. Well, it's like what I always say to parents: if it's not your kid now, it will be your kid later. Like, stay, not that she's not being humble, but you're in awe of her and inspired by her. But
I think you're absolutely right. I think
You know,
I'm sorry I'm jumping in there. I think I think you're absolutely right, because I I was coached by this guy who he's an incredible coach, and his wife is an incredible coach, right? And then they had children. So, but they coached us around parenting anyway because they were great coaches, but they never had kids. Then they had children. And then I see it in his writing. Oh my God, his parts were getting activated left, right, center. Things that he thought he'd healed were now coming back up again in his relationship with his child, which was then leading to fights and conflict with his partner. And then I was communing with him and saying, what I found is you can do the work and you can really prepare yourself and you can really distinguish past through self, but you do not know what it's like to parent a 1-year-old, because your 1-year-old would be activated, and then a 2-year-old, and your 2-year-old's activated, and then they're 7, and now your 7-year-old is activated. And Liza always says to me, my tough period is when she's going to be a teenager. I know I'm going to clash with her, and I'm going to need your help. So she's already predicting it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, she does sound pretty amazing, I gotta say.
but that's really like for parents or parents to be, you're not really aware of what is going to happen. So little things like Liza wanting desperately, Azia wanting Liza to take her to bed. Mm-hmm. I had parts that get activated because nobody wanted to take me to bed. Right. So all of a sudden I realized that I got this little part that really resents my daughter because she's getting love. And to recognize that is so, it releases so much energy and flow. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right. Rather than to sit and stew in resentment and turn it into like, why is she spending so much time in there? Or why is she blah, 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 or picking a fight or doing something? It's like you turn toward yourself and you're like, there's a little part of me that wishes he had a mommy like Liza who would have spent that time putting him to bed. And then again, that sort of that self-compassion, that inner relationship with younger parts of you grows. And then your parts have more faith that you're there for them. And then, that's a virtuous cycle, really, and that is what I love about the model so much, is that it really kind of can hold all the complexity. I know what you were bringing up before about, feeling like people on Twitter or something would be very reactive about certain things, and maybe feel like, you're not coming down hard enough on people who do inappropriate acts or whatever. And, humans are just unbelievable. I mean, they have the capacity for the most compassionate, generous, creative, just unbelievable achievements. But we know that we also have, all of us have the capacity also to harm people and to harm our planet and to cut off feelings and to only think about oneself. I mean, we've just got an incredible range of feelings and behaviors in human beings. I mean, it's astounding. It really is astounding.
Yeah.
What I love about the model is that, particularly in these times that just feel so fraught, that it is so helpful to think about, like, that every little baby is born with that sense of wisdom and compassion, and that we do suffer in our lives and we do get hardened, but that every bit of connection inside of ourselves or with our intimate family community or the outside of community, I have to believe it sort of sends something positive out into the world. I just have to believe that, that all the work that we do, that a moment of self-compassion, I don't know, sort of like a pebble in a pond or something, that every moment of self-compassion any of us feels is for the greater good.
Oh, I totally believe that. We just went out for a walk on the bike ride, and then we came back in, and my daughter's just wrote a poster. We want to save the earth. no polluting, no smoking, no cutting down our trees, no killing animals. She's done an earth sign. She wants to put it somewhere. That I think comes from an essence that's been cultivated by two parents who are really trying their best and trying to be focused and grounded. And like when I was younger, my dad was working his ass off trying to make ends meet. So you never saw him. And when he came home, he was just so parts led. He just wanted his kids out of the way. And my mom had 4 kids all on her own, and she was just parts led, just wanted everybody to just shut the hell up and whatever. So you just had to like handle life on your own. And then before you know it, you're 49 and you're really defensive and you're judgmental and you're angry and you're reactive. And it's just these little parts that if people listening to this podcast can just learn more about the model and just look at their children through a different lens, but more importantly, look at themselves through a different lens and to raise a self-awareness about how they're feeling, talk to themselves. And that's a little bit, and as I do that all the time, I'm always walking around talking to myself. I think the collective good is definitely there. I just want to circle back to the bike incident just now.
Sure.
So after she did everything she did, as 2 supportive parents, we were like, oh my God, you were awesome. You did really well, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm thinking, I'm interested in your opinion, that maybe there's a conversation to be had with Zia and her parts.
About the bike ride?
Yeah, maybe because she's very open to these type of these conversations. It's like, well, there was a part of her that was afraid, and then that part did a really brave thing. Now we're telling her that.
Right.
Oh no, I'm just curious if you think it's too much.
No, I mean, I think what would be interesting is to see how she is the next time she goes on the bike. If that would be the time, like if she's again resistant, say, even though now she's done it.
She will be.
That may be the time. I really saw the last time there was a really frightened part, and then your courage came through, and your daredevil part, your adventurous part came through. And so I just want to remind you, right now you might be feeling that scared part again, and I get that, but you will get it. You will do it again, so I would wait. I would probably hold off and wait and see if she just is like, oh, now I just want to practice all the time. Let it go, and just let her do it. But if she's resistant again, that would be the time where you honor the resistant part, right? You don't just say, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. You just did that. You did that yesterday. That's, I think, what our knee-jerk reactions, all of us would probably be. You just want to squash that so that would be the difference in being an IFS informed parent. You would still honor the resistant part or the scared part, and you'd acknowledge it, but you'd also remind her of that courage that she showed and that adventurousness, and that you have faith that will come out again too. Does that sound?
I will do that. Yes, I will do that, Lisa. Great book, Internal Family Systems Therapy with Children. It wasn't only great because of the material in here about your work with children. It really was an instruction manual on IFS. For me, it was the best. I've read them all, and it was the best book I've read in terms of really laying it down for coaches, therapists, or parents on what it all means. You did a great job. You really did.
I really appreciate that. I'm starting to work on the second edition, which will come out in about a year. I'm really excited about kind of expanding the demographics of who we're working with in the book. But I really wanted it to be usable for parents. I really wanted parents to be able to not be like, what does all this gobbledygook mean? So I do think it's a good book for parents to read.
It's brilliant. And you've got 2 parents here that are using it. Lisa, is there anything you're working on now? How can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you any questions? Or
Yeah, my email is lisa@sohoparenting.com. As I said, I'm working on the revision of the book and expanded version. And mostly I'm doing a lot of teaching of other IFS therapists to sort of pass the torch and and bring along child therapists who want to bring this to their clients and family, and also taking care of my grandchildren, my parents, my children, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good luck with it.
So honored that you asked me to speak. And it's been lovely having a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Just a few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank you guys and girls for listening to this podcast and being supporters of it. Many people stop drinking alcohol just by listening to this podcast. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, thanking me for that, right? So give this to somebody as a gift today, or rate and review the podcast. If you can rate and review the podcast on your local podcast player and tell somebody about it, you could change somebody's life today, okay? So thank you for listening, and thank you in advance for that piece of service. Also want to thank our producer, Stan. Stan is still currently in the Ukraine, fighting the war and producing our podcast while his family is somewhere else in the world right now, okay, apart from him. So everybody send out your prayers and your love. Stan, we love you. Thank you very much for everything you do here. For you out there, if you are starting to think about, contemplate, reflect on your relationship with alcohol, you do not have to do this alone. Yes, you drink alone, but you don't have to stop alone, okay? And if alcohol is not your thing, but you are starting to feel that you actually are living a parts-led life, the ego is getting in the way too much, so you're not happy with the way life is going, then reach out to us at thestrivemethod@gmail.com. Just say, Lee, and just tell me what is on your mind, and we'll start to have that conversation. Strive community is a beautiful place where you can start to feel seen, heard, and matter. It's where you can get community, and it's where you can start practicing what we call the 8 C's of self, our core values, right? Of creativity, curiosity, connection, compassion, courage. I can't remember the rest of them, but there's 8 of them, right? And we have our quest structure. So we have assignments, and they're really interesting, exciting. At the end of them, we say to you, come on, do this quest, right? Get involved in this challenge. And strivers are really finding it exciting, and they're working their challenges in these areas that are going to increase the amount of time they spend in self-energy, in a state of flow. And that has amazing repercussions for the relationship you grow with yourself, and for how you reach out to others in their life, like how you parent, how you are as a child to your, not child, but a son or a daughter, how you are in the relationship with the person you share your bed with, and how you behave with your employees, right? So reach out to me at strivemethod@gmail.com if you want to learn more. Okay, much love, everybody.